Broadband for footy fans, powered by Viatel, sponsors of Scotsport.
A great deal of football to pack in tonight, and while Hearts continue to set the pace ahead of Celtic, capital rivals Hibs have been keeping well in touch with the top two. Hibs at home to Kilmarnock on Saturday, and the highlights from Easter Road with David McKinney.
Success is never so hard to take as when it comes to your rival, as Hibs are finding out. They've had to watch the headlines they were receiving last season now being made up for Hearts. They're not doing so badly themselves, to be fair, but it's been Hearts this, Hearts that, yes they can, no they can't, virtually from week one. And yet, Tony Mowbray's men have settled about their business in tidy fashion. Kilmarnock too have caught the eye with their early season form, but even when the two met, they found that events in the East End of Glasgow overshadowed what was happening in the East End of Edinburgh. It was ever thus, of course, but there was plenty of good football played out here. The surging determination of Danny Invincible, Gary Wales on the end of the cross, Big Malky on the end of his header, leaving Wales with that should-have-scored look on his face. From the corner, Kilmarnock defender Simon Ford was well placed to head home, and he had an I-have-scored look on his face. However, if he seemed a bit bemused by it all, maybe it was because this was just his second goal for the club. It came at a good time for Kilmarnock and was enough to rock Hibs back on their heels for a couple of minutes. Composure regained, Stephen Fletcher was confident enough to test Combe from distance. Even this early, it was looking like one of those afternoons for the Killie keeper. He was busy enough and his eye was in as Hibs buzzed about in their usual manner. Combe was keeping a cool head at the back of the Killie defence as Gary O'Connor was to find out. Tony Mowbray would be happy enough with his side's effort and commitment in the opening 45. It might yet have brought a reward for O'Connor, but for Combe. There's no doubt Jim Jeffries appreciates just how good a goalkeeper he has, and he had to be good as Hibs upped the pace and the pressure. Killie almost cracked, but Fletcher was ruled offside even before he rolled the ball into the net. But for all the superiority, there wasn't a goal to show for it for Hibs, leaving Kilmarnock the growing feeling that things would go their way. Now, this is where it all got a bit surreal in the mind of one newspaper reporter who saw an overcast Easter Road in October as the Aztec Stadium in 1970. Hibs Italy, Killie the mighty Brazil. It's a World Cup final, and this is Brazil's fourth goal in that game. Similar perhaps, but you have to draw the line at Colin Nish in the role of Pelé, rolling the ball to Jamie Carlos Alberto Fowler. Honestly, it was in one of today's papers. Taken too far, I reckon, but it was a well-worked and executed goal. So Mowbray's half-time talk encouraged his players to continue to play the way they were. Things would turn for his men. Well, they did turn around from the moment Gary Caldwell's drive sneaked past the Killie defence and eluded the outstretched hand of Combe. No mistaking the goalscorer, Caldwell, number 4, with goal number 1 for his side. Well taken, Hibs in with a shout. The difference in the attitude and form of Derek Riordan has been commented on in the past few weeks, and while the Kilmarnock players who swarmed around him should have stopped him, there was no stopping Gian Buzolin thundering in for Hibs' second. Alan Combe, understandably unhappy. Alan Freeland left to keep the peace. This one down to the skills and confidence of Riordan. Head down, then heads up for Buzolin as he attacked across to bring Hibs level. There's absolutely no doubt both the Edinburgh clubs can be impressive at home, especially when they have the upper hand. Hibs were flying now and virtually unstoppable with the pace of Ivan Sproul added to the mix. The substitute was stoppable as it happened, bundled to the ground on the very edge of the penalty area. Sproul might have been looking for a spot kick, but the challenge was clearly outside the box. It turned out to be just as good as a penalty as Kevin Thompson's free kick was rammed home by Buzolin. Buzolin ramming home the message to the Hibs fans and to the Killie defence. Combe left with no chance. Buzolin getting goal side of his marker to bullet home the header that gave Hibs the lead. Killie, perhaps, and understandably, might have been shell-shocked at this stage. Their 2-goal lead a distant memory, and they'll have to hope their form can even out before their good start to the season is but a memory. Sproul again caused a degree of panic down the right-hand side, and as the ball was spread to the other side of the area, the Killie defence had their eyes on the ball, but not on the run of Riordan, who was left with a simple tap-in. Well worked, poorly defended. Riordan, like Boozlin, getting in before his marker. Game over. It was almost becoming exhibition stuff for Hibs now, as Stephen Fletcher showed off and Sam Morrow was shown enough of goal to have a go. If they continue to play football of this quality, Hibs might well be able to close the gap at the top and emulate Hearts by providing a challenge to the Glasgow clubs. Hearts and Hibs 1 and 2. There's a less fantastic thought than Killie as Brazil.
The players at half time, you know, your performance level, if it stays as high as it was first half, you will get your just rewards. It might not be this game, but over the course of a season, you play like that, you'll win more games than you lose.
For me today, you know, we've lost 4 goals, and I still think our 2 defenders and our goalkeepers played really well. For me, we've lost it in the middle of the park.
Neil, you're a Hibs fan. Gordon Strachan said that it's a 4-horse race, not a 3-horse race. By that, he's obviously including Hibs. As a fan, what's motivating the team at the minute? Who are the key players for you?
I think for Hibs at the moment, you got guys like Kevin Thompson coming onto the scene. Obviously, we've lost Scott Brown, which has been a bit of a loss.
But he's back at training this week and signed an extension 2008.
Yeah, which you know is sending out positive vibes and it's projecting the right kind of attitude. You know, because there's certain kind of opinions about other players who maybe commitment.
But everything happy at Easter Road for you guys at the minute?
Yeah.
It's all happiness and sweetness at Easter Road.
Indeed. Wasn't it always? Jim Duffy, wasn't it always? No, I won't ask you that. Jim, thanks for joining us tonight. You were at the game on Saturday. Impressed with Hibs?
Yeah, I'm always impressed with Hibs. I mean, I've seen them several times this year, and every time I see them, the first thing I am is entertained, because they're a side who take risks, and Tony's philosophy is obviously to get the ball down and pass it, and you know, you can see that it's very evident in the way they play. And yet Kilmarnock took a 2-goal lead, looking good, but Hibs were always playing well. Yeah, but I mean, Kilmarnock as well are a good football side. Yeah. I think Jim Jeffries done well. I mean, he said they'd lost the game in midfield. I think he's right, because I think Boozlin and Thompson were outstanding for Hibernian on Saturday, and I think they definitely dominated the game. Thompson's a player that's impressed you all season, isn't he? Yeah, fantastic player. I mean, there's a lot of good players there. We mentioned Scott Brown, Whittaker. I mean, you could go through the Hibs team really and you know, talk about the young, talented players. But for me, Thompson's the pick of the bunch this season. Andy, great fight back from Hibs and 4 great goals as well.
Yeah, tremendous goals. They do have a goal threat from so many angles, and what a difference when you get guys from midfield popping up and getting a goal. But to go 2 behind, they needed to get back into it in the second half, and I think that just controlled a bit of power there, placing it into the corner, and that really got them back into it. And I don't think it's any misunderstatement to say about Riordan and back into the side and what an effect he's having. I mean, the way he stood that ball up for Boozlin to go and attack, it was a terrific goal. And Jim, Boozlin scored 2 goals. Here's another one coming up here, but he gives them so much more in the middle, doesn't he? Yeah, I mean, he's just such a talented player. I mean, I think by his own admission, he had a really slow start to the season. He was actually quite poor in the Derby match at the early part, but he's got stronger and better, and 2 goals from midfield, 2 headers. But here, this is where his quality is. He just looks up, picks out Fletcher with a great ball in, and Riordan took the gamble where the ball was going to land and managed to finish it off with aplomb. But Boozlin's a very talented player, and when he got moved into the central area, he was wide in the first half, but Tony Mowbray changed it, put Sproul on in the wide area, moved Boozlin into the centre, and that was instrumental in changing the game. Andy, we can't move on without having another look at this second Kilmarnock goal on Saturday. I know they've been comparing it to the 1970 World Cup final, but whatever about that, it was a smashing goal, wasn't it? Well, it's just Kilmarnock at their best, and it was actually Hibs who had the ball. Caldwell got caught on it, great work to get it back, and then just some controlled passing, and that's a wonderful finish from Fowler, high into the net. Well, Jim, a great goal from Kilmarnock there, but in terms of Hibs, we heard Gordon Strachan saying earlier that there were 4 teams involved in this title race. What do you reckon? No, I don't think Hibs will be there at the end of the season, Jim. They have no.
clout that Hearts have to strengthen the squad. Tony Mowbray's working with a very limited budget, very talented, and they will do okay, but they won't be title challengers.
More from you later.
Hibs win, moving them 2 points closer to Hearts and Celtic, and yes.